What's going on, you guys, and welcome back to the channel. In this video, we're going to be looking at unpacking asterisk args and asterisk kwargs. Now, to begin with, we'll start with unpacking, and to understand that, we must first define the definition of what packing is, so the opposite of unpacking. Now, packing is where we create an iterable such as a tuple or a list where we assign values to it. So, for example, let's create a list which is movies. We'll say the first one is, let's give it a film, Shrek. We'll say Home Alone. We'll say The Lion King. And finally, let's put in Toy Story. So this is what packing an iterable is, or what packing is. Now, you may have unpacked it like so. So you could say movie 1, and this is something that you've seen before or may have seen before. Say movies. So that will give us Shrek as movie 1. We can do movie 2, movies, and then 1, and so on and so forth. So we can do movie 3, set that to movies 2, and for completion, let's just, without running it, add in the last one. So this one here, 3, and like that. So this first one here will get Shrek, and then the last one we can just add and we'll say Toy Story. And this is just taking an element out of this list, movies, and assigning it. So with 0 indexing, and this basically means that a list doesn't start at 1, it starts at 0. So 0 being Shrek, and then 1 being Home Alone, up until 3 being Toy Story. Okay, now another way we can actually unpack this is say something like movie 1, movie 2, movie 3, and movie 4 equals movies. So now it's pretty much doing exactly what this does. However, this time we're unpacking it, and also in a much more readable way, so without this bracket notation. And we can go ahead and actually print some of these out. So movie 1 and movie 2. And if I go ahead and run this, so down here in my console, you can see that movie 1 is this one here. I'm just going to go ahead and comment this. But we get movie 1 being Shrek, we get movie 2 being Home Alone, and if we printed out movie 3 and 4, we get The Lion King and Toy Story. Okay, so that's nice, it's a bit more readable. However, what if we did something like this? So let's say we got rid of movie 4, and now we run this. We get back an error. Now this error is saying that in line 10, so this one here, where the one I've just highlighted, so in line 10, we're getting movie 1, movie 2, movie 3 equals movies. The error is a value error in that there are too many values to unpack. So notice the keyword here, unpack. So what's happening? So we're saying, okay, for Python, we want to set movie 1 to Shrek, movie 2 to Home Alone, and then movie 3, which one do we give it? Do we give it Lion King or do we give it Toy Story? And we're kind of saying, just give it both, or are we? Like, we don't really know, but that's exactly what Python's complaining about. So in order to kind of like fix this, we can do something like this. We can say movie 3, and let's actually change this to, actually let's keep it in for now. So we put this asterisk here instead. Now if we run this, we get back no errors, but we haven't printed out movie 3. So let's actually go ahead and see what movie 3 would be. So I said movie _ 3. If I run this now, we get back Shrek and Home Alone just as before, but this time we get The Lion King and we get Toy Story. So what we're saying is, with this asterisk that I've added here next to movie 3, which in fact, should just be, we could say Disney movies, makes a bit more sense. And let's just replace that here, Disney movies. So we're saying to Python that, okay, movie 1 is going to be Shrek, movie 2 is going to be Home Alone, and then for the rest of the movies in that list, throw it into this new list. And the reason why I'm saying it's a new list is because here in the console you can see that Lion King and Toy Story are stored in the list. So throw in the rest of the movies into Disney movies. If I now add another element to that, say up, and I don't know, let's say cars, and now run this, we get back, so Shrek, Home Alone being the first two, and then throw the rest of the list into this Disney movies. Now, this is basically what unpacking is. You don't actually have to put this at the end. You can put it in the middle, you can put it in the beginning. So if we actually switched it around, and let me just get rid of this, and let me just delete this, and let's write it so that we want to throw in everything up until the last element, so cars, into a list. So we'll say a bunch of movies, and then we'll say last movie, and we'll assign that to movies. So now if I print a bunch of movies, we should expect a list of Shrek up until up, and then cars. So if I print last movie, and I run this, we get back exactly that. So we get all the elements up until the last one thrown into a list, a bunch of movies, and we get the last ones, which is cars, assigned to last movie. And like I said, it doesn't have to be at the beginning or the end of this assignment here. We can put it in the middle as well. So if we said something like first movie, other movies, or say middle movies, and last movie, we can set that to movies. And if I print first movie, middle movies, and last movie, let's run this, and we get back the first one being Shrek, the last one being Cars, and everything in the middle we've thrown into a list, which is middle movies. Okay, now I would just want to apologize if I've kind of reiterated myself like quite often, but this is essentially what unpacking is. Now you may also see this notation where, let's say you only want the first and last elements of this list. So instead of storing it in this middle movies, you usually see people putting an underscore here. And that basically is just for more readability reasons. It's saying like, we don't care about the middle elements. We just want the first and last. And of course, this isn't just specific to first and last or middle. You can add it at the beginning of your assignment. So you can put asterisk underscore for the first one, or you can do it at the end. But okay, that's unpacking. And now let's move on to args, or asterisk args, and asterisk kwargs. But before we can actually do that, it's important first to, I'm just gonna remove middle movies. It's first important to understand what positional arguments are and what keyword arguments are. So let's go ahead and create a function. And we'll call this some func. And we'll say number 1 and number 2. Oops. And let's go ahead and print it out. So if I say number 1 is number 1, let's add a colon here as well, just to make it a bit nicer to see. And then number 2, we'll say number 2. Okay, so very bog standard function, doesn't do anything apart from printing out the arguments that are passed in. So let's actually go ahead and call it. So if I go ahead and say something like sum underscore func, and then pass in 1 and 2, and if I go ahead and run this now, we should expect number 1, just here in the console, is 1, number 2 is 2. Now, the way we've passed in these arguments with just 1 and 2, this is known as, these are known as positional arguments. And these are just arguments that are passed into a function based on the order in which the parameters were listed during the function definition. So we define number 1 as being the first argument and number 2 being the second argument of this function sum func. And we've said in this case that the first argument that we pass in is going to be set to number 1, and the second argument that we pass in is going to be set to number 2. Now, we can also add keyword arguments, so we can say sum underscore func, which pretty much does the exact same thing as the function above. We can say number1 equals, and then say 4, and then number2 equals, let's say 5. And I'm just going to comment the above function call out. If I run this now, we get number1 is 4 because we've explicitly said as a keyword argument. So this is the example of a keyword argument here, that number1 is going to be 4 and number2 is going to be 5. Now there are different reasons why you would use a keyword argument over a positional argument, as this one here is a positional one and this one here is a keyword argument. So I'm just going to add a comment above that, positional argument, and this being a keyword argument. And yeah, one reason is readability. For example, that way if someone else sees your code, they know that number1 is being set to 4 and number2 is being set to 5, rather than having to go into the function definition to see what the names are. However, the other reason is so that you don't have to care about the order with keyword arguments. At least you don't have to care about the order in which the arguments or the parameters are defined when the function is defined. So for example, we can also do something like sumfunc, but instead of putting number1 as the first keyword argument, we can say number2, and we can set this to say 100, and then number one we can set to 200. Now if we run this, we get back, if you just ignore the call above it, but we get back number1. Actually, let me just comment this out, run it again. But we get number1 being 200, even though we defined it last. But because of our keyword argument, we said that this parameter, this argument name number1 is going to be 200, and number2 is going to be 100. And that's pretty much keyword positional and keyword arguments. I'm a big fan of keyword arguments. It just helps with readability. However, take your pick. There's no right or wrong here. But now let's go ahead and look at the last part, really look at the last part, which is asterisk args and asterisk kwargs. So I'm just going to comment this out as well. And yeah, let's go ahead and do that. So to begin with, let's go ahead and create a function which calculates the average of a list. So we'll say average, and this will take in numbers. And all this will do is say total equals, and then we'll just sum numbers, and we'll return the average of that. So we'll say total, and then the length of numbers. Let's go ahead and use that. So we will say average, or let's create a numbers list. So numbers, we'll just add in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then we'll say average, or we'll just print it out. We'll say print, and then call average, and we'll throw in numbers. Okay, so let's go ahead and run this. We get back 3 or 3.0. And yeah, so what we've done is we've created this function average. We have a argument, which is numbers, and this we've passed in a list. It sums it all up using this Python inbuilt function sum. You could of course loop over it if you want. And then we just make that function call. But we have to always, and this is somewhat of a problem, is that for this we have to define a list and then pass that list in. Wouldn't it be cool if we could just do something like print and then average, and we can just pass in as many numbers as we want, and then from there it will create the average based on that, so we don't have to create this list beforehand. And you can do that, thankfully, in Python, and this is where asterisk args comes in. So I'm just going to add a comment here, so asterisk args. I'm going to comment out this print statement, but let's go back now, and let's just copy this function here. I want to just keep it in just for history reasons, so you guys can see what I've been doing. Let's create a new average function, and I'm just going to call this new because otherwise replit complains. And okay, So in order for us to turn this or take in this asterisk args or take in as many numbers or arguments as we want, all we have to do is put an asterisk next to numbers. Now we can do exactly what we wanted to do, which is print and then pass in as many numbers as we want. So we can say print and we'll say average, and for that we'll just say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You can add as many numbers as you want. Let's run this. And we get back an error, one positional argument of 8 given. Because we need to call new average. So yeah, you can actually, this is a good example of it. So average takes one positional argument, and this is this old average function that we had. And we want to call this new average, and this can take in as many. So we'll say new average, run, and we get back 4.5. However, this time it didn't actually complain about how many parameters we passed in. We can even remove a few of them. So I'm going to remove 5 to 8. Now if I run this, we get back 2.5, but it doesn't complain. You know, we can add as many as we want. Now let's actually have a look at what this asterisk numbers is doing. Now, the reason why it's called args is that you can name this whatever you want. A lot of times you see something like this, present, so args. And I'm going to go and move it over to this asterisk args, as that tends to be the kind of industry standard. And yeah, put it like that. But you may have already guessed that this args, or we had before numbers, is actually a list, because we can call this sum function on it. And we can also call this a length. Or this len function on it as well. So let's go ahead and print out, let's say type asterisk args, or args is, we'll just print out type and we'll pass in args. So if I run this now, we get back type args is a tuple. Now the reason why this is a tuple is because the differences between a tuple and a list is that with a tuple, you cannot mutate it, is immutable. And as for a list, you can mutate it, it's mutable. And so yeah, like when we call this type args, we're getting back tuple. So okay, that's interesting to know. We get back an iterable here, which means we can go ahead and iterate over it. If we wanted to actually create our own summation, we can say total equals 0. Then we can say for I in args, total plus equals I. Run that again. We get back 2.5, but we're iterating over args. Therefore, args must be an iterable. Okay, so that's what args is, or asterisk args. Can be very useful for many sorts of things. You'll see it a lot in your Python journey, this concept of asterisk args. And to kind of complement it, there's also something else called kwargs. Now, just earlier we looked at keyword arguments, and it kind of follows on from that. Now, let's go ahead and create a function. I'm just going to get rid of this print here. Actually, let me just comment it out. And let's go ahead and say concatenate, if I can spell it, like so. And we'll pass in word 1, say word 1, word 2, word 3. And all that we'll do is just return, or let's say print, say word, actually use a format. So you can do this F and then square and curly brackets, say word 1, space, word 2, and word 3. Now, if we go ahead and call this, as we can also use or make use of keyword arguments here, we can say concatenate, say word, let's do it in a random order. So word 2 equals cat, word 1, word 1 equals hello, and say word 3 is pass in I don't know, ball. Okay, So let's go ahead and run this. We get back hello cat ball. It makes no sense. There's nothing sensible about this sentence. However, we're passing in these keyword arguments like so in just a jumbled order. However, we set word 1 as being hello, word 2 as cat, and word 3 as ball. And as long as we're defining these keyword arguments, then Python doesn't care how we order it. However, this again, just like our last case before, like with numbers in our original average function, we're constrained to only being able to pass in 3 arguments, or keyword arguments in this case, as you know, we've only defined 3 of them. We don't allow for more or less. But we can do that with keyword arguments. You can even do this with just standard args. However, for this example, I'm going to show you with keyword arguments. So I'll say new, and then concatenate. And this time, instead of saying something like args or numbers, we can say words like so. And yeah, the other version of that would be kwargs. But you can name it whatever you want. Like I said, this args, kwargs, these are just like kind of standardized names or argument names that you can use. But yeah, whatever makes sense to you. But now we can do something like this. So we can say, actually, let's first just print what kwargs is. Let's go ahead and try it out. So just like with our new average, we can pass in as many keyword arguments as we want. So let's do new concatenate, and we'll say word 1 equals Bob, word 2, and you can have it in whatever order you want as well, equals says word 3, which is hello, and then word 4. Add as many as you want or as little as you want, doesn't really matter. And yeah, so Bob says hello, lol. Okay, again, there's no sense to this whole sentence, but let's run this. And when we print this out, we get back just ignore the hello cat ball as that's coming from the last function call, but we get actually a dictionary. It seems we're getting this curly bracket, this key value, word 1 being Bob, word 2 being says, word 3 hello, and word 4 lol, which also means if it's a dictionary, then we cannot have two word 1 or 2 of the same keyword arguments. So I run this now. We get a conflict, and that's saying keyword argument repeated, and that's because it's a dictionary. So if I go back to that, we can actually print out the type for kwargs. So we can say type, we'll say kwargs. And I'm just going to comment the above statement out. If I run this, we get back, well, first of all, the dictionary itself. However, we get back the type, which is dict. Okay, so again, this is also very useful. We can do like something like check to see if a certain key is in there. So the keyword word 1, if that's in this kwargs, stuff like that. And yeah, that makes your Python functions a lot more powerful. But let's go ahead and actually turn this into a useful function. So we can do something like sentence equals, we'll set that to an empty string. We'll say for word in kwargs dot values. As it's a dictionary, we need to do dot values to get back all the values in our kwargs or our dictionary. And we'll say sentence plus equals and then word, and we'll add in a empty space there, and then we can just print out sentence. So if I run this now, we get back Bob says hello lol, because that's what we're doing with our kwargs. Because it's a dictionary, we can call this values method on it, and for each value in that, we can just add it to our sentence and then print it out. But that's really what keyword arguments are. The sort of examples I've just shown you are very, arbitrary. They don't, or trivial. They don't really do much in the real world. Maybe the concatenate does something useful, or even the average, but you'll see it a lot throughout your Python journey, especially with other libraries that you use. I know for a fact that Flask uses it a lot, or Django, sorry, at least. However, yeah, that's really what unpacking all the way to args and kwargs is. And yeah, I hope you guys found some value in this video. And in the next one, we'll be kind of building on this by looking at decorators. But for now, stay healthy, stay safe, and I hope to see you in the next one.